welcome everyone to this webinar today with Dmitry Chichlo, Chief Security Officer at Before AI. We're going to be talking about Cyber Deterrence 101 for financial services organizations. We have a great little presentation today, but before I officially introduce Dmitry, I'd like to start with a poll. So the poll is: how mature is your organization's protection, detection, and response to cyber attacks? Very mature, pretty mature, some maturity, but a ways to go, relatively immature, or completely immature. Be curious to see what folks have to say about this. We'll give you all a minute or two to respond, and then we'll move on to the presentation. All right.
Only one answer so far.
One answer so far. Pretty
ahead,
mature, very mature, some maturity, but a ways to go. So pretty mature. That's a good start. All right. We're getting some responses here. I'm glad that everyone is jumping in. I'm glad you consider yourselves mature. I can't always say the same for myself, but but we'll save that for another webinar. All right. So thank you very much for your responses. I'll let you continue to respond, but I'm going to go ahead
let's keep the poll running a little bit.
For sure.
Only 7 answers so far.
Definitely. So everyone, welcome today. I'm excited to introduce Dmitry Chichlo. Some of you may have met him in the past. Hopefully, you will find
in the future.
Yeah, hopefully in the future, if not already. And we'll let Dmitry briefly introduce himself, and then we'll get started with the presentation. Dmitry, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks, Andy. So welcome everyone. I'm happy to be with you today. So I'm the Chief Security Officer of Before AI. Prior to joining Before AI, I worked 15 years, probably, I don't remember exactly, in banking financial institutions in Ukraine, then in Switzerland. From 2019 to 2023, I was vice chair of a supervisory board of a Ukrainian bank, a large Ukrainian bank, where we faced several issues to deal with. The first one was the invasion of Ukraine by Russia. And in parallel, I also run a small consultancy here. I'm based in Geneva. So today we're going to talk about cyber deterrence for financial organizations. The financial organizations are a prime target of the cyber attacks. Why? Because they have money, right? There's a lot of money inside, and they have a lot of customers. So one possibility is to steal the money from the customers, or and trick the customers into giving up their money, or tricking the bank executives into making transfers. So the idea of the criminals usually is to use phishing schemes because it's a quite effective way of tricking people into giving up their credentials, either to access their bank accounts, or give up their credit cards when they give up their credit card numbers on the phishing sites. So criminals can steal credit cards and credit card details, either to use them for personal benefit, but more likely to sell them in bundles on the dark web for very cheap price. I mean, every credit card is quite cheap, but the bundle might be quite expensive. The other solution is to create a fake e-banking website where the customers would enter the credentials, and once the criminals have those credentials, they can withdraw money or they can make bank transfer from this customer's account. And another solution also for the criminals is to use business email compromise. So it's a long-term intelligence operation that is going to spy on an individual. So it might be a bank employee, on the colleagues, on executives, on the customers, to understand how people work. So it's a long-term intelligence operation. And the idea at the end of the day is to trick people into making huge bank transfers. Attackers might impersonate either a customer or senior executive to trick bankers into making those unauthorized transactions. And the amounts are usually extremely consequent. And the problem for banks is that because of consumer protection laws, they are generally required to compensate the customers for the unauthorized transactions. And indeed, it's extremely complicated for Mr. or Mrs. Smith to spot phishing attacks when they arrive. They don't have the same capability as the bank in general, right? There is a discrepancy between the financial and the staff ability of the bank to counter those attacks or take down the phishing sites, and the ability of Mr. and Mrs. Smith to spot the phishing attacks. And in terms of image and brand protection, banks, of course, are also willing to reimburse their customers. Except if you prove they acted with gross negligence or they gave up their credentials, but usually the banks, they reimburse their customers. And the question here is, those repeated attacks, they cost huge amount of money to the banks. And when we discuss with the banks, they usually say, well, there's nothing we can do about this, right? Because we spot those phishing websites once they already operate, once they already stole our customers' credentials, once they already stole money. And we don't see a possibility to react in real time and even to prevent those phishing websites to being built up and to start operating. And the question here is there a way to deter cyber criminals from building those websites, from conducting those cyber attacks against the banks and against the customers? So is there a way to somehow predict, deter the cyber criminals from putting efforts into tricking the banks? And we have a second poll now. Andy? Can you launch the poll?
I am getting ready to do this now.
You have to have the start.
1 second here.
So the question is, how likely do you think is it for your organization to reach a state of cyber deterrence?
How likely do you think it is for your organization to reach a state of cyber deterrence? Extremely likely, very likely, not likely, or impossible? Eager to see your responses.
It looks like an extremely tricky question. Okay, we have a first answer. Two answers. 3. Okay. 5. Okay, 30 more seconds. All right. It looks like we don't really have more answers, so we're going to end the poll. So let's talk about cyber deterrence. And let's talk about the concepts. Let's define the concept. First, we're going to talk about intelligence. Intelligence is the process of collecting, analyzing, disseminating information about potential threats, vulnerabilities, or adversaries to inform decision-making and help protect set systems' national interests. This is very important because there are three aspects before decision making. So it's the ability to collect information, it's the ability to analyze information, and it's the ability to disseminate information. That means you know exactly who is going to receive this information, right? So I had discussions with executives from the car industry, for instance. And the car makers collect huge amount of data about their cars every day. Imagine the amount of cars that drive on the roads everywhere, on the streets, and they're able to collect huge amount of data. The problem is, how do you analyze them? And even the simple question, do you want to analyze them or not? Even if you have the ability to collect data, you must have the ability to analyze it. So this is I was talking about the Russian invasion before. I think it's an interesting case. This is a dashboard, infographics that was made in December 2021, prior to the Russian invasion. So here you have intelligence gathering data and analyzing data. You see on the left side, you have an empty deployment area in June 2021, and suddenly it's a newly deployed, 5 newly deployed BTGs in November 2021. This is analysis, information gathering, and intelligence. And everything has a goal, which is decision making. And this is also very important. You don't collect information just to collect, or analyze information just to analyze information. The next step is take a decision with what you have. And this is an example of analysis. Once I have all this information, I think that Russia might invade Ukraine from these different axes. So that were the predictions that were made in 2021. The second concept we are going to talk about today is preemption. Preemption is a strategy or an action taken to prevent an anticipated threat or undesirable event by addressing before it occurs. In other words, I'm trying to, let's take the example of Ukraine again. You see those troops being concentrated around the Ukrainian border. A preemptive action from Ukraine at this time in 2021 or until before February 2022 would have to strike the Russian troops in Russia. That would have, by doing such preemptive strike, Russia might have thought about, hey, am I going to invade Ukraine? So first you destroy or you harm their capabilities of invasion. And second, you send a signal to your adversary that if you invade me, you might have troubles. Okay, so prevent an adversary or an undesirable action by instilling fear of the consequences. That's the deterrence. It's an action taken to prevent an anticipated threat or undesirable event by addressing before it occurs. And by using preemption, you can reach deterrence. And deterrence is a strategy aimed at preventing an adversary or an undesirable action by instilling fear of the consequences. In other words, you know that if you're going to invade Ukraine, you might have troubles. So you try to disrupt, you try to prevent the invasion by doing preemptive strikes, and you might reach a state of deterrence. And that's exactly what we achieve at Before.ai by using prediction of cyber attacks and preemption. We reach cyber deterrence by being able to accurately predict attacks before they happen, and then regularly and preemptively mitigating those attacks. We discourage attackers from even bothering to try. So what's the idea behind is when you reach deterrence, you reach a state where the costs outweigh the gains made by the attackers. I think you all probably understand that cyber attacks are a business like any other type of business. It is a business that requires technical means, that requires people, and that means that we at Before.ai, we are able to, by disrupting the attacks, we are able to send signals to the attackers that it is not worth investing that amount of money to target our customers, because we are permanently disrupting the attacks you're conducting, and the cost you've been investing in your attacks are going to be too high to make a benefit out of that. So again, prediction plus preemption equals cyber deterrence. And that is a use case we have with one of our customers, Volksbank, which is located in Italy. You can see that until November 21, they had a lot of cyber attacks, and they had to compensate a lot of money to their customers. And then they started implementing our solution. And you see that gradually, step by step, the number of victims decreased, the number of alerts notified decreased, the number of disruption we've been operating decreased. Why? Because there was no incentive for the attackers to target Volksbank. In other words, we reached here cyber deterrence because today there are almost no Volksbank is almost never the victim of a cyber attack because there's no point into attacking this bank. How do we? So how does the? How do I? Yeah. How do we? How does the technology work? So, as I said initially, we are doing intelligence across the internet. We are collecting around 35 terabytes of data every day. We are scrolling the internet. We are collecting metadata that give indications about the infrastructures we're monitoring. So we monitor 1 billion infrastructures every day and around 500 million domain names. And among those, there are 20 million infrastructures that we classify as suspicious. And we grade them according to their behavior. If I make an analogy, imagine someone who is, you enter your condo. So you open the door with your key. You press the button of your lift. You go up the stairs. You go up to your floor. You open the door with the key. You close the door. It's a normal behavior. But someone who would try to rob you would probably try to do something like tailgating, right? He would wait for someone to open the door and enter the building without actioning his key. And then probably he would snoop into your mailbox to see whether the mailbox is full, which would be an indicator that someone is not here. And then he would probably go by the stairs because he doesn't want to be spotted in the lift. And then he would listen to the door and to understand whether there is noise inside, to understand whether people are here or people are maybe on vacation, especially if it's during vacation time. And then look at the door, whether the door is solid or whether it is possible to break into the apartment because the door is not strong enough. So that would be an indication of a wrong behavior. So the analogy here is to explain how we analyze the behavior of the infrastructures and the networks we are monitoring on a permanent basis. 5 to 10 times per hour, we are collecting we're taking a snapshot of internet's metadata, and we feed our model that works through artificial intelligence, which is behavioral artificial intelligence. It's not generative AI, it's behavioral AI. And so with the computing capacities we have today and that exist today on the market, we are able to analyze and process all the 35 terabytes we absorb every day about internet's metadata. And once we have this, we are able to say, hey, this infrastructure is trying to hack, it targets one of my customers. It might be a phishing attack, it might be a DDoS attack, it might be whatever type of attack. We're completely agnostic in terms of type of attack. and we are able to tell our customers, hey, there is something boiling up. And the beauty here, and we quite often hear the objection that, yeah, there are tools on the internet, and there are tools out there that exist to counter the attacks. The main difference is that we are able to predict the attack. So the attack has not started yet, that we are already taking down the infrastructure. If I come back to the analogy I made with Russia and Ukraine, Ukraine would have struck Russia deep into their lines by preemptive strike and interrupted the invasion before it has started. And this is exactly what we are doing today. By repeatedly taking down the infrastructures, automatically taking down the infrastructures we see are malicious and willing to attack our customers, we are able to disrupt the attacks and deter the attackers from repeatedly trying to attack our customers. So to answer the question before, yes, it is possible. It is likely to reach cyber deterrence for financial organizations. And did you have questions? Do you have people asking questions?
Yeah, so thank you, Dimitri. We are opening up Q&A period. If anyone wants to jump in with any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat and we will field them for you. I think let's see here, to get us started, at which level of maturity do you think a tool like yours should be implemented?
Wait a second. Yeah. Again?
At which level of maturity do you think a tool like yours should be implemented by an organization?
That's a very interesting question, in fact. In fact, intuitively, you might say, hey, I should have a certain level of maturity, right? Because it looks like a threat intelligence tool. It looks like something which should be integrated in a SOC. It looks like security monitoring. But counterintuitively, I would say that this kind of tool should be implemented precisely in organizations that have a low level of maturity. And explain why. Because a company that has a low level of maturity has a low capacity to defend itself against cyber attacks, so is more prone to cyber attacks, and has a lower capability to respond to the cyber attacks. So an attack conducted against such company would have devastating consequences. With our tool, you are going to be protected against cyber attacks. Today, we reach a precision of 99.95% of prediction. So in other words, we have 0.05% of false positives. That means that when we send information to the registrars to take down an infrastructure, they know that we are almost 100% sure about our prediction. And so a low level maturity company would have precisely incentives to use our tools because it would be extremely well protected and would have the ability to focus on more internal threats. So we're not monitoring your network inside. We're not a security monitoring company. We're not an external SOC. We're monitoring all the guys who are still outside of your network and trying to either get inside or launch an attack against you. So we are completely non-invasive, and the tool is completely transparent for the organizations. In other words, you could sleep much better if you enable such service to protect you against cyber attacks.
Great. And earlier you mentioned disruption. How is disruption different from a takedown?
Yeah, so a disruption. So disrupting a cyber attack means that the attackers think already about attacking you, right? And before they start the attack, you disrupt the process. So the process of the attack is going to be disrupted by what? By a takedown of the infrastructure. So we work with the registers and we send them information about malicious infrastructures that have their domain registered by them. And we send information to say, hey, you just take down this domain, take down this infrastructure. And so the attack that would have started is already disrupted.
Okay, great. So I'm waiting to see if there's any additional questions.
Yep.
If there's not, we'll go ahead and close. I'll give everyone any other burning questions out there that anyone wants to ask, pop them in the chat now. We'll give you 1 minute here. Okay, it looks like no new questions. Thank you very much, Dimitri, for your presentation. Thanks to our attendees for joining us today. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. Dimitri is happy to answer questions offline if you have them. He can be reached at dimitri@before.ai. And that's his email address. And we thank you again for joining us today. Have a great day and hope to talk to you soon.
Thanks, Guy. Bye-bye.